everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the first day of our virtual conference, IPENC Virtual Conference Series. I am Leah Esquilio, IPENC Regional Coordinator, and I will be your co-moderator for today. Joining me as co-moderator is my colleague, Eileen Lucero. She is the National Coordinator of Eco Waste Coalition.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Just to check if you could all hear us. I know for now everyone is muted, but just to check if you could hear us, can you type in the chat box where you are now, what city or country you are joining us from? Yay, UK. Hello, Rachel. Hello from Beijing, China. Hello, Nina, Oslo. Antipolo City in Manila, Depok. Wow, Quezon City. Jakarta. South Korea, the birthday boy is with us. Hello, Joe. Bangkok, Yogyakarta, New Delhi. Angus from Hong Kong. Did I miss anyone? We know we have friends from Davao City also here. Solo, Indonesia. Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone. It's awesome that in spite of this unprecedented time we are in, we could still be all together virtually. Oh yes, hello Phong also from Vietnam. Yes. So welcome everyone. So this virtual conference, our virtual conference has been co-organized by Nexus 3 Foundation, Eco Waste Coalition, and Earth in Thailand. And we are supported by Stockholm Environment Institute and IPEN. If you remember, for many of you, so IPEN-C, or the International Pollutants Elimination Network, Southeast and East Asia, we are a regional network of over 40 public interest groups in 10 countries. If you remember, the last time we gathered together in an in-phase conference was in 2018. We were together in Puerto Princesa, Davao City. And we had 3 days of rich discussions on our work, effective campaign strategies, fundraising, and so on. Today, this conference would have been an in-person meeting in Bali. However, because of the pandemic, it's better to be safe for everyone. And we decided that we had to go virtual. It has its limitations, we know, but also going virtual has allowed us to expand the invitation, to extend the invitation to those even beyond our existing network and even beyond the Southeast and East Asia region. So that's a positive thing that has come out of this. And we welcome our new friends outside the existing network and beyond the Southeast and East Asia network. We know that not everyone has a good internet access. And now that we are doing virtually, it's challenging. Doing things online, it's very challenging. So we thank you all in advance for being patient and bearing with us, through whatever technical difficulties or challenges or connectivity issues we might encounter in this conference series. But despite limitations, we look forward to everyone's active engagement and dialogue in this virtual conference. Before we move on, some meeting reminders. So this is being recorded with your permission, and we are also live on 8 Facebook pages of the different organizations. When not speaking, we will be on mute, but later during the question and answer and open forum, everybody can unmute themselves. For those participating on Facebook, you can join the question and answer and open forum later and just put in your questions at the comment section of the FB page. I would like to say something about the languages. Um, we really tried our best to be able to widen, no, the reach of our conference. One is by making it accessible in different languages. So we have this translated the different presentations to Bahasa. There's an English translation, Thai, and Vietnamese. Later on, during the presentations, you would be able to choose the subtitle you prefer. Okay, so before each presentation, we will provide you the links in the chat box where you could access these subtitles. There is also simultaneous translation available now. We have a live translation in Chinese. Just click on the interpretation button below in your Zoom functions, and you can choose the Chinese. You could even mute me so that you will just hear the Chinese translation that is being done. That's why in this regard, we want to give our sincere thanks to all the presenters because they really prepared their presentations way in advance to accommodate our timeline for translation. So thank you very much. Sincere thanks as well to our translators facilitated by Gita Pertiwi, Earth, and CG Fed, and also Shenzhen Zero Waste for our Chinese translator. Thank you for helping out. I will now turn you over to Eileen so she could give you a brief overview of the 4-day conference series.
Thank you, Leah. So, for the team and overview of the 4-day conference series, as we all know, roughly 70% of the world's urban population lives in developing countries. And in these areas, communities are disproportionately exposed to toxic chemicals, with marginalized and vulnerable groups such as pregnant women and children at greater risk. Toxic chemicals have been linked to disturbed immune response and other serious illnesses. Therefore, the efforts of civil society groups to pursue citizen science initiatives across Southeast and East Asia towards addressing pollution problems in their communities is crucial. That is why we have decided to focus our regional conference on citizen science and its role in preventing and reducing urban pollution from toxic chemicals. How will our conference look like? The first 2 days of our virtual conference series will focus on what is citizen science and some successful citizen science initiatives in the region and beyond that resulted in good outcomes. In the last 2 days, we will zero in on challenges and solutions, how to engender greater participation from marginalized groups, how to improve collaboration to make efforts stronger, how to improve citizen science contributions to community health and policy. For today, our focus is on citizen science and SDGs. The session will cover the basics of citizen science and its role in promoting the Sustainable Development Goals. We will take a look at some citizen science initiatives in the region that address pollution in urban areas related to SDG 3, which is good health and well-being, SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, SDG 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, and SDG 17 for partnership. I will now give you back to Leah to introduce the first speaker.
Thank you, Ai. Okay, so for our first speaker, okay. So the first presentation, our first presenter is Miss Rachel Pateman. She is a researcher with the Stockholm Environment Institute, and she is joining us from Great Britain. Rachel researches the citizen science process, trying to understand what motivates people to begin participating in citizen science, why they continue or stop participating, and how projects can be designed to maximize data quality. She is also working on a project to try to understand what role citizen science can play in monitoring the Sustainable Development Goal targets. That is why she is the perfect resource person to talk to us about citizen science and the SDGs. So friends, let's welcome Rachel. But first, just as a reminder, those who wish to listen to the presentation in English or Chinese, just stay here in the Zoom meeting room. And for those who wish to have Bahasa, Vietnamese, or Thai subtitles, please click on the link in the chat box or access the presentation from our website, ipenc.asia. So you could open the video and choose your preferred subtitles.
Hi, thank you for the invitation to talk at this conference. My name is Rachel Pateman and I'm a researcher at the Stockholm Institute. I'm based in our office at York in the UK, where we have a team of people who've been working on citizen science for over 13 years now. Today, I'm going to be talking about how citizen science has the potential to contribute towards the Sustainable Development Goals, with a particular emphasis on citizen science in urban environments. So first of all, what do I mean by citizen science? I thought it would be useful to cover this first, as there might be some in the audience who are less familiar with citizen science methods. There's been a lot of debate over the years about the definition of citizen science, but it can generally be taken to mean the involvement of non-professional scientists in scientific research or monitoring. Within this, however, there are a wide range of approaches that can be taken, and different categorizations of projects have been proposed. One common one is to define projects as contributory, collaborative, or co-created, depending on the stages of the scientific process that citizens are engaged in. Contributory projects are those where citizens are involved only in collecting data, which are then submitted to project leaders who do the analysis and interpretation and disseminate the results. These can be seen as top-down projects, where the research questions and methods are defined by the professional scientists or project leaders, and citizens are only engaged in data collection. Within contributory projects, citizen engagement can be active or passive, depending on the type of data collection methods used. More active methods include those where participants are, for example, making observations of species or collecting water samples, whereas passive participation often occurs when data are collected through mobile phones or other low-cost sensors without the active engagement of participants. In addition to contributory projects, there are collaborative projects where citizens are involved in other stages of the scientific process, perhaps in the analysis of data or the communication of findings. And co-creative projects are those which take a more bottom-up approach and involve citizens in all stages of the scientific process. Most importantly, in the design phase, where they are involved in setting research questions and the research methodology. These projects often take place at a local scale because they are designed to address local needs, and the resources required for such in-depth engagement means that they cannot take place at a large scale. An extension of co-creative projects are citizen-led projects, where there is minimal or no involvement of professional scientists. The topic of how citizen science can be used in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals is growing in momentum. As I'm sure you're all aware, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015. At the heart of this are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, which aim to end poverty and other deprivations, improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and preserving marine and terrestrial biodiversity. The 17 goals are underpinned by 169 targets, which set out a series of outcomes and means of implementation of the goals. Each of these targets itself has a number of indicators by which progress will be measured, of which there are 247 in total. So, how can citizen science be used within the context of the SDGs? First of all, much of this discussion has been around how citizen science could contribute to collecting the data that are needed to monitor SDG indicators, as it's widely recognised that there are currently significant gaps in the data that are available. In fact, only 35 of the 169 targets have sufficient data globally for progress to be tracked. There are particular concerns that data underrepresent certain sectors of society, often the already marginalised, such as those living in informal settlements, or they may have poor geographic coverage, missing out data from harder to reach places, and they may not be up to date. Official surveys are often expensive to run and so are only repeated infrequently, particularly in lower income countries. So citizen science has been proposed as one way in which these data gaps could be filled. It's been proven as a method that can be used to collect data from marginalised communities, and it can be used to collect data from wide geographic areas, including harder to reach places. And it can generate data at very fine temporal resolutions and be responsive so that data are up to date. While indicator monitoring is done at a national level, there is also a drive to localise the SDGs to cities and regions. This is the process of taking into account sub-national contexts in the achievement of the 2030 Agenda. Reporting at the national level risks losing the vast variation that exists within countries. Local monitoring, which citizen science is well placed to contribute to, can capture this variation, including from marginalised communities in commonly underreported areas. This can help to achieve the pledge of the United Nations member states to leave nobody behind. Citizen science methods, particularly in co-created type projects where citizens are involved in the design of research, can also help bring to the fore issues of importance or concern to local communities that may have been missed in higher level discussions. Citizen science therefore also offers the opportunity to identify new, locally relevant targets and indicators in order to fill gaps in the existing SDG framework. Finally, there is also huge scope for citizen science to contribute to actually achieving the Sustainable Development Goals in a number of ways. The research and monitoring that's done through citizen science projects can help to advance the understanding of environmental and social problems, which can then be addressed through scientific advances, technological developments, policy making, and local action. Citizen science also has the potential to influence the individuals and communities that participate in projects. The need to engage citizens in the SDGs in order for them to be achieved has been recognised since their formation, and citizen science has the potential to provide a platform for this engagement. For example, through participation, citizens can gain knowledge and awareness of sustainability issues, which is itself one of the SDG targets. Through this participation, citizens may also change their behaviour and influence others to do the same. Citizen science can also be a way to bring together different stakeholders, including citizens, to build shared understanding of and co-develop solutions to sustainability challenges. Partnership working is also recognised as being critical for the achievement of the SDGs and has a dedicated goal, number 17, partnerships for the goals. So clearly, there are a lot of opportunities, but there are also challenges for the use of citizen science within the SDGs, such as data quality and who is not participating and therefore represented in the data collected. At SEI, we've recently completed a review of current and existing citizen science projects to understand in more detail what these opportunities and challenges are. The focus of this review was citizen science in urban environments in low and middle income countries. More than half of the world's population live in urban areas, and this is projected to increase to 2/3 by 2050. The SDGs have a dedicated goal focused on tackling sustainability in urban environments, SDG 11, which aims to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. This recognises the pressures on man-made and natural systems that come from rapidly growing populations, but also that cities have the potential to be where critical successes for sustainability can be achieved. Cities have been the centre of a lot of the recent innovation in citizen science and related approaches. The smart cities concept, for example, aims to make use of smartphones and other low-cost sensors, as well as social media and other big data to monitor the city environment and inform urban management. However, the digitally invisible will not be represented in these data, and this is likely to be more acute in low and middle income countries. Solutions to sustainability challenges need to be designed with the needs of a wide cross-section of the population in mind to avoid benefiting only a minority. In our review, we searched the academic and non-academic literature for reports of citizen science projects that have taken place or are still ongoing in urban environments in low and middle income countries. So I want to start by giving you a flavour of some of the types of projects we found, in particular looking at those that focus on pollution, before moving on to discussing some of the opportunities and challenges we identified. So in our review, we identified 143 projects in total and found projects which fell within the scope of all 17 of the SDGs. Some of the major topics that emerged included land use mapping, emergency and disaster response, biodiversity, and several that would be associated particularly with urban environments, including transport, waste and pollution. Of the pollution-related projects we found, the theme with the most projects was air pollution. These primarily engaged citizens in collecting and uploading data using low-cost sensors to generate air quality data at finer spatial and temporal resolutions than is available through official monitoring stations. These types of projects can often be quite passive in terms of citizen engagement, but many also included efforts to raise awareness of issues with participants and to use online platforms to visualise data to inform personal decision-making, such as which routes to take to reduce exposure. SEI's work in Nairobi has also demonstrated how co-created approaches can be used to address air pollution. Over the past 5 years, we've built a network of researchers, practitioners, and community members who have been exploring air pollution in the Mukuru informal settlement, monitoring exposure to air pollution using citizen science approaches, and conducting mini projects to better understand people's lived experiences and to begin to co-develop solutions, including using workshops, interviews, storytelling, participatory mapping, theatre and music. These approaches have brought together local policymakers with other stakeholders and community members and have allowed us to explore these complex issues in a direct but non-confrontational way. Our first project in Mukuru sparked the creation of the Kenya Air Quality Network, a forum to bring together policymakers, researchers and other stakeholders to improve air quality in Kenya. These projects have the potential to contribute towards monitoring SDG indicator 11.6.2, which focuses on levels of particulate matter, as well as making progress towards indicator 3.9.1, which tracks the mortality rate attributed to air pollution. Projects can do this if they influence behaviour and begin to address the causes of pollution. Many of the projects we identified were also concerned with water quality. This included the Global Freshwater Watch project run by Earthwatch, which engages HSBC employees through corporate social responsibility schemes, as well as other volunteer groups in regular monitoring of local water courses. Earthwatch have identified the advantage of this approach to be the collection of water quality data at much finer spatial and temporal resolutions than is possible through official monitoring programs. These projects could contribute data to monitoring indicator 6.3.2, which focuses on ambient water quality, and action taken as a result of these projects could also help make progress towards indicators 6.1.1 and 3.9.2, which focus on access to safe drinking water. Several projects we identified focused on the problem of waste, particularly engaging citizens in mapping locations of problem waste to flag these issues to service providers. Mopa in Mozambique, for example, is a mobile app which can be used by residents to report problems to the municipality and to receive feedback on the resolution of these issues. The authors of the report we found reported that the app had enabled more marginalised communities to engage directly with their municipality and has raised awareness amongst these communities of their rights to basic services. Waste collection times have also improved significantly. These projects can help monitor and make progress towards indicator 11.6.1, which focuses on waste management, and 12.4.2, which focuses on hazardous waste. We also found a number of projects which looked at pollution in general. Danger Maps, for example, is a citizen-led project, which was originally set up by a resident in China who found they had bought a house near a landfill site. Now participants collect and share locations of various sources of pollution, such as from garbage dumps, toxic waste treatment facilities, oil refineries and power plants, so that they have access to this information in their personal decision making. As well as all these contributions to indicators specific to pollution, we also found opportunities to contribute to other cross-cutting SDG goals, targets and indicators. These include the potential for projects to contribute to sustainable urban management, inclusive decision-making, inclusion of all members of society, education on sustainable development, and partnership working. So clearly, we have identified lots of opportunities for citizen science to contribute to the SDGs. However, in our review, we also identified a number of challenges. The first of these was the countries in which we identified projects. Almost a third of projects we found were in China, reflecting the drive for research into the use of big data in this country in recent years. Other countries with significant numbers of projects were all middle-income countries, including Mexico, Brazil, and India. We found very few projects in low-income countries, and thought needs to be given as to how citizen science can be supported in these countries, where arguably the greatest gains could be made through its use. This will include the issue of how to engage with the very poor in projects. Payment of participants should be considered, as well as designing projects that are of direct relevance to people's lives. This, however, feeds into the next challenge we identified, which was the conflicting needs of, on the one hand, designing projects that people are motivated to participate in because they address issues relevant to their lives and because the methods used do not put extra burden on their daily routines. And on the other hand, collecting data in such a way that they can be used in wider monitoring. For data to be integrated into broader monitoring programs, certain data quality standards will need to be met and agreed methods used. Designing projects that meet both of these needs, if that's deemed desirable, will be challenging. It may be that some projects should be seen primarily as ways to achieve or localise the SDGs, rather than to contribute to national monitoring efforts. Another challenge we identified was engaging the right stakeholders in projects. Representatives of organisations who can take action with the data collected ideally need to be engaged from the start of projects, so they have buy-in and can potentially help to shape projects so that data is collected in a way that's of use to them. Many of the projects we identified found challenges in identifying or engaging these key groups, which limited the extent to which projects resulted in change on the ground. A lack of familiarity with citizen science approaches in low and middle income countries might be a contributing factor here. A final challenge we identified was the short-term nature of many projects. Indeed, many had not got past the trial or piloting phase. In some cases, this was attributed to the short-term nature of funding for such projects, while in some cases, projects only need to be run for a short period of time, for example, in response to a disaster. In others, the ability to contribute to monitoring or change on the ground was limited by challenges in keeping projects running because funding could not be found. So I hope I've demonstrated here that there's lots of potential for citizen science to be used to monitor, localise, define and implement the SDGs. But there are some critical challenges that need to be addressed in order for this potential to be realised. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for your very informative presentation. It is interesting to hear about the different approaches to citizen science according to the level of engagement of citizens. How citizen science can be used in the context of the SDGs, the citizen science examples that dealt with air pollution, world water quality, and waste issues. And finally, thank you for leaving us with some challenges that need to be addressed for citizen science to be fully maximized in their pursuit of the SDGs. I know you all have some questions for Rachel, and she's likewise excited to answer all of it. But we will have a time for the question and answer after all the speakers have presented. So please save it for later. Okay, so our next speaker, our second speaker, is a well-known figure in the environmental protection and justice movement in Thailand. Penchom Saitang is the Executive Director of Ecological Alert and Recovery Thailand and a citizen science practitioner for over 20 years. Again, we would like to remind you, for those who wish to listen to the presentation in English or Chinese, you will stay here inside the Zoom. For those who wish to have Bahasa, Vietnamese, or Thai subtitles, please click on the link in the chat box or access Penchom's presentation from our website, ipenc.asia. So you could open the video and choose your preferred subtitles.
Dear everyone, thank you for the invitation to talk at this conference. My name is Penchom Satang, Director of the Ecological Alert and Recovery Thailand, an environmental non-governmental organization based in Thailand. We have been working on industrial pollution issues and environmental justice for at least 20 years. Today, I'm going to talk about why and how we use citizen science in Thailand to increase transparency in industrial pollution management in urban areas in Thailand and empower people participation in environmental and health protection, as well as how citizen science play important role in promoting sustainable development goals. Citizen science, in other words, people call it community science, civic science, participatory monitoring, participatory action research, community-based monitoring, and volunteer monitoring. It depends on each place are convenient with different words, but mainly we call citizen science. Earth has started citizen science projects because of there is an inspiration to action in the past, and we continue this action until today. The inspiration in the past is we want to explore unsustainable industries in Thailand, and we want to find the true answers. What have been in the air the people living in neighboring with petrochemical industries breathe in every day. We start collecting the air samplings and the lab results, and some we found from the lab results, and some of the most shocking findings include conducting air samplings and analysis by collaborating with the bucket to air monitoring experts in the past, and then organize trainings for staff and the affected communities to take part in the project, and continue monitoring for 6 months in the central area in the Rayong Province, where situated the largest petrochemical and other related industries. And we start collecting air samples for analyzing the chemicals in each sample. Totally, we collect 5 samples at a time. Apart from that, we also conduct some field research and desk research. After that, we hold press conference with the attention of several high-rank officers and private corporations. This is the process that we did at the time. The lab results and some of the most shocking results from our air sample at that time very interesting. That include we found benzene. Benzene is a volatile organic compound and also known a human cancer-causing agent. We detected in 4 or 5 samples at that time, and the level is exceeded the US EPA annual ambient screening level as much as 60 times. We've also found vinyl chloride also known as a human cancer causing agent. We detected in two samples, 1,2-dichloroethene or EDC. This is also a compound known probably human cancer causing agent. Chloroform also we detected in a sample that was in excess of the EPA annual ambient screening level by 119 times. We also found a total of 20 different toxic chemicals. These were identified in the 5 samples, and at least 6 up to 12 volatile organic compounds and sulfur compounds were detected in each sample. And at least 2 of the toxic chemicals in each sample are in excess of 1 or more health protective standards of screening level. That toxic cocktail inhaled by Maktaput people in Rayong Province. When we conduct the research and we found the result of the air sample, we organized some actions and we have done some policy advocacy at the time. The actions we have taken in that time, like producing reports for submission to the government, producing educational materials for people and media. This is since the volatile organic compound is a pollutant emit from several factories, it's quite complicated. So we have to produce some types of material to educate people in the area, as well as to explain to the media for their better understanding how these compounds attack different parts of our body. We also organize a press conference and we invite all stakeholders and media to participate to attend our presentation of the results from the air sample. We have actions at the pollution sites with the involvement of the affected communities and the media. Later, we also use these research results to negotiate with the polluters and regulators demand for improvement of air emission and require the air monitoring station in Rayong Province. We have success in doing air pollution monitoring at the time. After our press conference, the government took some actions immediately. For example, in October in that year, Pollution Control Department also conduct volatile organic compound monitoring, and later the government issue it's called the notification of the National Environmental Board. This is the annual standard to issue the annual standard level of volatile organic compound in the ambient air, covering 9 highly toxic compounds. This is the first time that in Thailand we have the notification by the government to keep on monitoring of the volatile organic compound. Later, Pollution Control Department had installed the VOC monitoring stations in the Rayong Province, and the Industrial Regulation Agencies also installed some additional VOC monitoring stations in Rayong Province to keep on surveillance for VOCs in the ambient air in 24 hours period. This has been done cover the whole part of the central region, the central area of Rayong Province, particularly the area in the area of petrochemical industrial complex. Later, there have been expanding continuous monitoring and improving ambient air quality in Bangkok and other polluting areas by the government. For us, after we can do some change for Rayong Province, we had conduct some expanding on citizen science project. In 2015, we established the citizen science in protecting environment and health project. This project included activities, several types of activities, like to setting up a pollution monitoring volunteer network, providing environmental monitoring training, conducting backup research and action research, provide supporting pollution lawsuits filed by the communities that have been affected by industrial pollution. And the projects have directly increasing negotiation power of people in fighting with pollution problems. The areas that we have expand our citizen science projects include the province in the northern region like Leh and Khon Kaen province, in the central region like Sระบุรี, Prachin and Chachoengsao province, in the eastern region like Rayong, where has been several petrochemical factories and coal power plant and other related chemical industries. We also expand our activities to Samut Prakan and Samut Sakhon province too. Main issues and main work we have done cover study in chemicals, like we conduct studies and monitoring heavy metals in sediment, methyl mercury in human health, in human hair and fishes. Conduct some study about lead in pen, and also do some activity with the community to monitoring arsenic in soil and sediments that have been affected by coal mining. We study about POP, particularly dioxin contamination and accumulation in chicken eggs and environment. And the latest issue we have been covered is PM2.5 in Bangkok and in some area near Bangkok. The pollution size, as I mentioned before, not only coal mining, we also keep monitoring environmental contamination caused by coal power plants, plastic and e-waste recycling, hazardous waste dumping, and petrochemicals. For PM2.5 monitoring, we have a lot of activity done in Samut Sakhon province. What we have done, we have installed PM2.5 sensors in schools and health promotion hospitals in Samut Sakhon province. Samut Sakhon province is located with several waste recycling, particularly those small-scale smelting and plastic recycling factories. Most of them are informal recycling of metal scrap and some operation of open burning. So this area has been suffering a lot from dust pollution and other types of air pollution. It badly affects the people health, especially many school students. So we start installing PM2.5 sensors in September. In this September, we have signed MOU with several local administration organizations, environmental agencies, private sector, and primary school in the area of Mueang district in Samut Sakhon. Then, in the past, we also conduct a study about methyl mercury in human hair and fish. This study we conduct to support the Minamata Convention, which IPEN and several academics and environmental groups advocate for Minamata Convention between 2013 until 2014. The beneficiaries of the methyl mercury study are the local people who live close to coal power plants. When we release the result of the study, it directly stimulates and alert several agencies of the government to take some action, particularly the Department of Industrial Works, Pollution Control Department, including some health agencies and Department of Special Investigations to investigate environmental problem in this area, to organize discussion and consultation with communities how to solve the problem, and have issued several orders for coal power plant in the area to clean up the dust and wastewater properly to improve the system of air pollution control and wastewater improvement. Some activities of citizen science we have worked together with the people in Rayong in Ban Khai district. Like we conduct the sediment for testing of some types of chemicals released by toxic waste recycling factory in Ban Khai area. This is another part of Rayong Province. And for this case, it's very important because in this month, in October, we are going to file a lawsuit with the local people for environmental rehabilitation and health damage compensation for the community. The, the activity also expand to the southern regions of Thailand in Krabi province. In the central part of Krabi municipality, which have been a serious problem of contamination by the municipal waste dumping. And this area, the municipality plan to build up the waste to energy power plant by used by garbage. But the contamination cover the wide area, allow the dumping site. So the community and the academic in the Krabi province have collaborated with Earth team to explore and investigate surrounding the dumping sites, and we conduct some environmental sampling. We produce the report and advocate for some improvement of contamination in this area. In conclusion, I would like to say that citizen science is practical and powerful tool to empower people and to increase public participation in different levels to bring the better change in environmental and health protection. This is the direct experience that we have done in the past several years. However, to conduct citizen science and with successful at some level, we need to work with, or we need to work in collaboration and in solidarity with scientists and experts. We have to involve civil society groups, particularly communities in each particular area, to produce strategic data and information, which is very important for negotiation. We have to connect with the media and educate general public for their support, because our campaigns will meet with some successful level of negotiation. We need to connect. We need to have support from general public and media. And the data or information that produced from citizen science project will be used to advocate with the policy makers, to negotiate with polluters, and used as evidence in the court case. Most important, citizen science is very important to advocate and to promote sustainable development, particularly to build up clean or green industries in Thailand, to encourage people participation, and to alert the government to keep on their consideration to promote sustainable development and indicate these policy into the governmental policy to develop our country. It is also very important to encourage the general public, communities, and several agencies to see to involve with waste reduction and concentrate on sustainable waste management. So thank you for your attention.
Hi everyone. Thank
Dear everyone,
Hi,
Pagpunta,
thank you for the
Tenchong, for your
invitation to talk at this
inspiring.
conference. My name
Pagpunta, Tenchong, for your inspiring presentation. You have shown that through citizen science, pollution-affected communities have found their voice and can use the results of their studies to negotiate with polluters, defend their human rights in courts, and advocate for policy reforms. Thank you very much. Now we go on to the third presentation. Mr. Krishna Zaki is a toxics program manager of the Nexus 3 Foundation based in Indonesia. One of his areas of focus has been mercury in the artisanal small-scale gold mining and healthcare sectors, as well as its trade and supply. Again, should you wish to listen to the presentation in English or in Chinese, you'll have to say here inside the Zoom meeting room. And for those who wish to access the Bahasa, Vietnamese, or Thai subtitles, please click on the link in the chat box or access Krishna's presentation from our website, ipenc.asia, so you could open the video and choose your preferred subtitles.
you for the invitation to talk at this conference. At this opportunity, talk about our campaign, which is monitoring indoor mercury vapor in hospitals in Denpasar City, Bali, Indonesia. My name is Krishna Zaki, and I'm a toxics program manager at the Nexus 3 Foundation. The Nexus Foundation for Environmental Health and Development, or Nexus 3 Foundation, previously known as Bali Focus Foundation, is a non-governmental organization established in year 2000, working together with all stakeholders to safeguard public, especially vulnerable population, from the impact of development to their health and the environment, and works towards a just, toxic-free, just and sustainable future. And we are affiliated with Alliance for Zero Waste Indonesia, or ASWI, International Pollutants Elimination Network, Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Basel Action Network, Break Free from Plastic Movement, Women Engaged for a Common Future, World Alliance for Mercury-Free Dentistry, and also NGO Shipbreaking Platform. Before talking further about mercury pollution in healthcare facilities, I'm going to talk about mercury itself. Mercury, a heavy metal that is liquid at room temperature or 25 degrees centigrade, is commonly used in wide range of products and processes. Mercury is toxic bioaccumulative, where the concentration will accumulate in the body and may cause irreversible impacts to human health and the environment. In the healthcare sector, mercury is widely used in dental clinics for dental care, which is dental amalgam filling, and also in thermometer and sphygmomanometer. According to World Health Organization, exposure and consumption of mercury to human body which exceeds safe limits may cause interference to the nervous system, brain, reproductive system, digestive, immune system, lungs, kidneys, skins, eyes, and impaired growth in children and birth defects in the fetus. Mercury containing devices in the healthcare facilities were still widely used, especially in Denpasar, Bali. This could release mercury into the environment due to the breakage and leakage of the devices, or in dental care, evaporates when it was being formed or cased as dental fillings. Steady mercury vapor exposure for a long period of time could harm health workers, nurses, dentists, patients, and visitors, as well as women and children, bring results high risk to their health. With this campaign, our goals are: first, monitor the mercury concentration at several points in 10 hospitals that are partner of the mercury-free healthcare sector and sustainable medical waste management program. Second, monitor the effectiveness of mercury-containing medical device elimination program. Third, provide a baseline study on the mercury concentration in indoor air at the partner hospitals. And fourth, provide recommendation for the improvement of its hospital's action plan to reduce and eliminate the use or purchase of mercury containing medical devices. And why we choose citizen approach in this campaign? First, because lack of citizen, in this case healthcare workers and visitor awareness about the harm of the use of mercury containing medical devices. Second one, because the widely use of mercury containing devices in healthcare facilities in Denpasar, Bali. And the third, citizens, especially healthcare workers, are the people most at risk of being exposed to harms of mercury containing devices. In this campaign, we conducted measurement by using Lumex RA915 Plus portable mercury analyzer at sample points at hospital with following criteria. First, dental clinic, and then nurse station, equipment workshop or storage, hospital facilities, for example, ICU or emergency rooms, wards, pediatric wards, etc. And also at the public place, for example, a waiting room. And also the natural sampling location in every site have been chosen as the ambient background concentration, which is under 20 nanogram per cubic meter. Lumex RA915 Plus portable mercury analyzer works on the principle of the Zeeman atomic absorption spectrometry with high frequency modulation of light polarization, which is differential Zeeman atomic absorption spectrometry using high frequency modulation of light polarization. This equipment is designed to measure the concentration of mercury vapor in the air, including ambient air, natural gas, and industrial emission. And the measurements were conducted with direct readings in the location together with the healthcare workers, where the portable mercury analyzer will perform direct reading mercury concentration in the ambient air and display the readings every 10 seconds. And then after reading 3 times 10 seconds, the screen will display the result of the average concentration of mercury in the air at the time of monitoring. Since the result could be directly read from portable mercury analyzer, we could explain and discuss the result with the impacted healthcare worker and suggesting action needed. And concentration of mercury vapor in the air is also influenced by climatic and weather factors. Therefore, at its sample point was also observed complementary data recordings such as air temperature, air pressure, and also humidity. This is how the display of the Lumex portable mercury analyzer looks like during the measurement. We can see here the mercury concentration at the beginning and the mercury concentration at its 10 seconds for 30 seconds. There's 3 measurements, and also the average mercury concentration for 30 seconds. And the last one is the deviation value. For standard references, according to the direction of the United States Department at Health and Human Service, year 2012, for action to be taken based on indoor mercury concentration measure are presented in this table. When the mercury concentration below 1000 nanogram per cubic meter, it means safe. And when the mercury concentration between 1000 until 10,000 nanogram per cubic meter, it should be prepared for evacuation. And the last one, when the mercury concentration value above 10,000 nanogram per cubic meter, the people should be evacuated and the room should be isolated. In this table, we can see the example of the monitoring result that we did at Sangla Hospital in Denpasar, Bali. We can see here the highest mercury concentration was at the calibration workshop room with 17,280 nanogram per cubic meter. In this room, the technicians usually do the calibration and maintenance for the mercury sphygmomanometer. Another alert result was at the ICU or ER with suspected cause by broken mercury thermometer and sphygmomanometer. And here is the result example from Sangla Hospital presented at bar chart. And this is the whole result. On this campaign, we conducted the monitoring at 103 sample points in 10 hospitals in Denpasar, Bali. The result as shown in this pie chart, 90.30% were at safe level below 1000 nanogram per cubic meter. 8.74% were at alert level between 1000 until 10,000 nanogram per cubic meter, and 0.97% were at dangerous level above 10,000 nanogram per cubic meter. Some challenges we face and how to overcome them in this campaign are: first, Lumix portable Lumix analyzer is a very sensitive device, so we should handle Lumix very carefully. Second one, limitation of Lumix battery endurance. So we should do the proper monitoring plans and always bring the Lumix battery charger during monitoring. Third, Lumix maintenance and calibration needs. So the Lumix should be maintained and calibrated regularly, especially after being used to measure high mercury concentration. Next one, lack of healthcare workers' awareness about the harms of the use of mercury-containing medical devices. So we should involving healthcare workers to actively participate during the indoor mercury monitoring or measurement process, reading and discussing the result together and explaining the harm of the mercury. Then the last one is the healthcare workers' reluctance to switch to non-mercury medical devices due to accuracy and habitual problems. Then we explaining the accuracy of non-mercury medical devices that are same as mercury containing medical devices, and even better because there is no risk of hazardous mercury exposure with non-mercury medical devices. And here is the outcome from this campaign. First, citizens, especially healthcare facilities worker and visitor, become aware of the harm of mercury exposure from the broken or leaking mercury containing medical devices. The result of this campaign could be used as a reference for the monitoring on the effectiveness of the action plan implementation to eliminate hospital mercury containing medical devices or equipment as targeted by each hospital. The partner hospital management are encouraged to develop action plan to reduce and eliminate the use or purchase of mercury containing medical device in each hospital. The government, in this case Ministry of Health, issued a policy to withdraw mercury containing medical device including mercury dental amalgam fillings. And some more recommendations from this campaign. The first one is regular monitoring of mercury-based medical device or equipment which are still being used and stored need to be done periodically and systematically. It should aim to make sure there is no damage or leakage of mercury containing medical devices. Second, switch or substitute the mercury containing medical devices or equipment with non-mercury alternative. The third one, a regular training on mercury spills handling or broken mercury containing medical devices need to be conducted periodically and systematically. Fourth one, awareness campaign needs to be implemented regularly on the issue of mercury, especially for nurses and healthcare workers in each hospital with high rotation or turnover. The fifth one, the use of amalgam for dental treatment should be immediately discontinued. The remaining mercury dental amalgam should not be kept at the dental clinic. And the next one is, as most the mercury waste from the sink in dental clinic is channeled to the wastewater treatment plant, a regular monitoring on the content of mercury in the wastewater is required. And the last one, mercury containing medical device must be stored in a temporary hazardous waste storage area and should receive special treatment so that the stored mercury waste does not contaminate the hospital further. Training of handling carcass or mercury-based medical device waste needs to be implemented periodically. And here is some documentation from this campaign. We can see here when we conduct the measurement at the dental clinic and also at the ICU or emergency room. And we were also involving the healthcare workers during the measurement, showing and discussing the result. And we can see here some mercury containing medical devices that still used in the hospital and also still in maintenance in the workshop. And here is another mercury spectrometer and the mercury dental amalgam filling that's stored in the dental clinic drawer, and also the photo of measurement in the workshop room and temporary storage room. That is all for now from me, and thank you for your kind attention. You can visit our website at www.nexus3foundation.org or email us here. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Krishna, for your eye-opening presentation. You showed how workers in the healthcare sector need protection themselves from the harm of mercury-containing devices used in hospital. That is quite ironic. And how this citizen science initiative eventually led to the issuance of a government policy withdrawing mercury-containing medical devices. Wow, congratulations. So now, we go now to our fourth and last presentation, this time from Malaysia. Khadija Hashim is a researcher with the Consumers Association of Penang. She leads citizen campaigns on toxic issues around heavy metals such as lead and mercury, as well as promoting a healthy lifestyle. So once again, English and Chinese speakers, you may stay here in the Zoom meeting room. To access the Bahasa Vietnamese or Thai subtitles, please click on the link in the chat box or access Hatija's presentation from our website, ipenc.asia, so you could open the video and choose your preferred subtitles. Again, let's welcome Ms. Hatija Hashim.
Sorry, friends. Let's try that one more time. Sorry, it seems like there's still no audio. Let's try to figure out. I hope those who could access the YouTube link are able to access it with audio. But give me a few seconds as well.
So while Leah is fixing some technical difficulties that we're having, let me remind you, you could have your questions written in the chat box so that we could access it later. So far, we have already 3 speakers. So some of you have already placed their questions in the chat box already. So feel free to do so.
Greetings from the Consumers Association of Penang. Today, I'll share with you the study we did to determine lead in paint in public playgrounds equipment in Malaysia. The urban pollution issues in Malaysia is, affects the air quality. And this has come about because of the rapid economic growth in our country, which had imposed costs in terms of industrial pollution and degradation of the public of the urban quality of life. According to a survey, the most concerning environmental issues in Malaysia is global warming, followed by air pollution that includes from vehicles, industries, and also from haze. Since 1997, Malaysia was affected by the Southeast Asian haze caused by forest fire resulting mainly from illegal burning for clearing oil palm plantations and peat fires, and this took place on the Indonesian islands of Sumatra and Kalimantan. During the haze period, unhealthy air pollution index readings were recorded in the country. Residents with asthma and pulmonary problems were told to stay indoors until the air quality in the areas improved. Our Malaysian aviation and maritime sectors were put on high alert following the reduced visibility caused by the haze. Schools were closed when the API reading surpassed 200. And the illegal dumping and burning of plastic waste has also led to dangerous levels of hazardous substances and chemicals in the Malaysian soil and water. A wide range of hazardous chemicals such as lead and cadmium and plastic related chemicals which are persistent in the environment were also present in the samples. In the study, it was shown that toxic metals such as lead and cadmium were several times above the acceptable limits set by the Malaysian Department of Environment. This is of particular concern as they can cause irreversible damage to flora and fauna. Given the hazards associated with lead, CAP had conducted numerous tests on food and products for the presence of lead. Over the years, we found lead to be present in a wide range of products such as paints, cosmetics, and food. Similar studies done by others has also found high levels of lead in Malaysian products. However, there is a dire need in the country for standards for lead in paint. And we had done the test earlier and we found that the levels of lead in most of the Malaysian paints had exceeded the international levels. And what is more concerning to the Malaysian population is that we do not have a standard for lead in paint. So the study actually helped us to generate data on lead concentration of paint in the normal paint as well in the playground equipment. And at the same time, we also wanted to raise public awareness about the presence of lead paint hazards in children playground. So in August 2019, 10 playgrounds in Penang and Kedah states in Malaysia were visited. In each playground, painted play equipments were observed and documented. Samples of chipping paint were taken from 17 pieces of playground equipment and analyzed using a handheld SRF Olympus Delta series. And this test was actually done by the organization Earth in Bangkok. The study shows that paint chips from 13 out of 17 samples contain lead above 90 parts per million, out of which 11 samples contain 10,000 parts per million. The highest lead level detected was 620 parts per million in a yellow multi-layered playground equipment at the public playground in Georgetown, Penang. So in order to reach public outreach and also public awareness, we had published the results in the book called Lead in Playground Equipment in Malaysia. And at the same time, we also made posters and conducted press conferences. And we had also used social media to reach the public or to create public awareness. And also the results of our test was also uploaded in our CAP website. This is the media coverage we had on the issue. As our country, we is a multiracial country, so it was actually publicized in three main languages, that is in Bahasa Malaysia, Chinese, and also in English. So we had quite a good coverage. The media had carried it as it concerned children, and also is also a topic that is of concern to the consumers. Besides that, we also had a talk to a group of women advocates, consumer advocates, to actually educate them on what is lead and what are the toxic impacts. And also at the seminar we organized, we also exposed the data and what the housewives or the mothers need to know, the dangers of lead that would affect their children. Besides that, we also wrote letters to the relevant authorities and municipalities, and following to it, the Malaysian Landscape Department of Penang Island City Council approached CAP for a discussion on a way forward in this matter. In the meeting, which was held on the 1st of November 2019, the department had several queries on new procurement abatement measures during removal of lead paint and disposal of scrap paint waste. After consulting IPAN, CAP wrote to them with some suggestion on the measures to be taken. The high lead levels found in painted playground facilities constitute a risk of lead exposure for children who spend time playing in this playground. So this was what we informed them, that how dangerous it is to our future generation. So what are the challenges that we face in Malaysia? There is no abatement measures or protocol for removal of paint in playground equipments. At the same time, the Malaysian government has been slow in formulating lead paint regulations and standards. And to date, the government has yet to identify the agency to formulate and enforce regulations. So what was our campaign outcome? Presently, there are regulations on lead only in food and cosmetics in the country. So what we need is the mandatory safety standards of maximum acceptable migration of lead in paint for not more than 90 parts in toys intended for children below 14 years of age. 14 years old. This is what the present standard we have for lead. Only in toys. However, the scope of the toy standard does not cover playground equipment. Also, it is unsuitable for this purpose since it does not take exposure routes in playground into account. So what we want as a conclusion is that we want the eliminating the source of lead exposure is needed to protect humans and nature from harmful effects of lead. At the same time, we need regulations and enforceable standards are needed so that we can stop the manufacture, sale, and import of lead-containing paints, as this will have a long-term impact locally and globally. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Hatija. Thank you for sharing your experience of how a consumers group, no, the Consumers Association of Penang, and the screening of the playground equipment that you did for lead content drew public awareness on the issue and the need to adopt a regulation banning lead in paint in Malaysia. So congratulations also for the activity that you did. So now, friends, we would like first to thank you, give sincere thanks to all our 4 presenters. Again, for being very generous in preparing your presentations in advance and giving us very inspiring presentations. Dear participants, could we ask you to choose an emoji down there, a reaction emoji down there below, so that you could express your thank you, your appreciation to our 4 speakers. Yay. Okay, I will put the heart. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. So before we proceed to our question and answer, can we just do a quick photo opportunity, no, to document our first day of the conference? So may we request everyone to please turn on your videos, show your lovely faces, We don't get to see a lot of people these days. So please turn on your videos. And there, wow, hello, hello, hello. And then Marnie, can you start taking pictures? Wow, I see the birthday boy. Hello, Joe. Hello, everyone. Okay, Marnie, just give a signal if you're done. Okay. Yes, and then let's also take for this side. Oh, Tani, hello from Japan. Hello, everyone. All right. I guess that's it. Marnie, are we good? Marnie? All right. Thank you so much. Hi, Bobby. Okay. Okay. So now everyone can now, I will be able, you can unmute yourselves. Or I've given everyone permission to unmute yourself. So we will go to the question and answer and open forum portion. We will be allotting about 20 to 25 minutes for this. Thank you for those who already typed in your questions from the chat box, inside the chat box. Thank you for that. We will begin with those. But meanwhile, for all the others, you could start raising your hand so that we could go through you one by one. And we request our speakers, yeah, Rachel is on video on, and Penchom and Krishna to be available to receive and answer the questions. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, let's begin with the question of Rosie Wang. She says, we're trying to launch eSTEM Edu and perhaps labs in rural China. Is it possible we do the same thing? Or what else can we do in rural context? Okay. Because our theme is urban pollution, so most of the presentations really are in the urban pollution context. And the question of Rosie is it possible to do similar things in the rural context? Anyone wants to take a crack at that? Rachel or Penchom or Krishna? Rachel?
I could say something, yeah. So, I mean, for sure, there are lots of examples of citizen science in rural areas. In fact, probably where I am, there are more examples of certain types of citizen science in rural context than there are in urban context. I guess the challenges are your concentration of people that you've got available to participate in your projects. And so perhaps the amount of data that you're able to collect might not be as great as if you were in an urban context, and you might have some other technological challenges as well. And I guess one thing to note, and something we always come back to, I guess, is that citizen science isn't always the kind of cheap option that it's sometimes made out to be. There are lots of costs associated with recruiting people and creating platforms, and one of the big things that's seen as a key to success in citizen science is really good on the ground engagement between project leaders and community participants. And if you've got more of a dispersed population, you might need more resources devoted to that kind of on the ground engagement. So I think there'll be different challenges, but it's definitely possible.
Okay, thank you for that. Any quick comment, Penchom or Krishna, if you have? But otherwise, we could go to the next questions.
May I try further this question?
Okay. Rosie, is that you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead.
what do you mean by like when the population is dispersed? Our prototype would be probably sending some college students as volunteers into this village to train to, for example, to provide some e-STEM education, or even involve some local teachers to provide this kind of e-STEM education. So basically, we're trying to provide this education for school kids. But further, we found a model called Fab Lab, and they somehow have like rural fab labs in some places in Europe. So we are also thinking of trying to facilitate some kind of small labs for kids in rural areas. But we are also thinking of probably if we can invite some people to do because pollution in Chinese rural village is very severe. For example, land pollution or water pollution. Probably air pollution is not such severe as that severe, probably. But since I'm a philosophy student, I'm not very clear about this part. So could you further like your concerns so that I can evaluate whether we can try to solve it or try to, find a solution. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there is an approach that we've used here. So I live in quite a rural area of the UK, and so we call it a train the trainer approach. So we don't necessarily go out and do all the training or say engagement with school children ourselves, but similar to the approach that you've suggested, we train up teachers or community leaders who then go out and do the on the ground engagement with school children, whoever. So that's a way of kind of increasing the scope of your and reach of your impact of your project with the resources that you've got available. So yeah, I think that approach sounds sensible, and I think in terms of planning the project, you've got to think about what data you need for the questions that you're trying to ask, and the scale will be appropriate based on what those questions are. So I guess that's the first thing that you need to think about is what the aims are, and then that will determine, I guess, the amount of data, where you're trying to get data from, etc.
All right, thank you so much. And Rosie, you can get also in the website the contact details of Rachel if you want to engage in more clarificatory questions. Let's go to the next. From Chinky Pelino Gole from Davao City, Philippines. May I know if policy recommendations out of the results of the citizen science initiatives were positively adopted by policymakers or not? Were there already concrete policies enacted based on the results of citizen science initiatives? Maybe Krishna can answer this as a start, because from your experience, there was action by the Ministry of Health, right? And then we can go to Penchom also after. Krishna?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, in our experience with our campaign with the when we did the monitoring of mercury vapor in healthcare facilities, we
พี่บอกบ๊อบให้เอาหูฟังไหมพี่ต้องพี่ยืมน่ะตอนนี้เลยค่ะ
hello, sorry. Oh yeah, may I continue? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, after we did the campaign, we produced a report and then submit our report to the government, in this case to the Ministry of Health, and also maybe the result of our campaign, it could be used by the government as a recommendation, and then as the result, and then the Ministry of Health, even before we officially ratify the Minamata Convention of Mercury, already provide the recommendation to take out or to withdraw the mercury containing medical devices. And also from the Association of the Dentists, they also are already banned the use of mercury dental amalgam in year 2015 or 16.
Thank
Maybe
you.
yeah, maybe our campaign have a small contribution to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Would you like to add something, Penchom, in terms of the policy outcomes based on your monitoring of the industrial pollution hotspots?
Yeah, also thank you, Nina, for your questions and everyone. I answered some to Nina's question, but I would like to add a little bit more. It seems that listening from my slide, it seems that the Thai government take pretty quick action to respond with the results from our study. But actually, for example, when we held the press conference to present our study result to general public and the media, many governmental officers came to attend, but they want to do something that to discredit our study, our result, but with the protocol and the lab analysis is very real, and we can. It is the first time in Thailand that citizen, the civil society group can do those scientific study and can prove some chemical contamination in the environment. So the government and the polluters cannot avoid to take some action or to take some responsibility. In the past, they try to hide these facts to the communities. But when we can do something that the governmental officer can prove to the similar result. So this is the reason that why they have to do some action to respond with the problem happening in the community. Not only the air pollution in Rayong Province, but it is also happening with the case that we study methyl mercury in fish and in hair. As the slides presented, several agencies take immediate action to monitor the mercury in fish in those areas. So in my opinion, it is very difficult in the past when we several communities protest against the air pollution or other types of industrial pollution. And when we didn't have any concrete or scientific support or academic support of those polluters, they don't take any responsibility to the damage happening to the people. But when we can do something to prove something, particularly those chemicals in the environment, it is very difficult for them to avoid to take some types of accountability or to improve the situation. So in this situation, I think even we can do something as some to advocate some policy level, but in reality, even today, the citizen, the civil society, and many communities in many areas affected by industrial pollution, they have to keep on monitoring, keep on protecting the area from uh, uh, the hazard chemical or industrialization. Yeah, it is not an easy thing to act and to move forward for the responsibility of the polluters. Yeah.
Okay, so the key is the people generating the data themselves. It's not, and they cannot be avoided, right? The policymakers are forced to respond because there's data from the affected communities themselves. Thank you for that. Yune, I will recognize Yune. You were raising your hand earlier before we go to the other questions already in the chat box. Yune, you have the floor. Yune, are you there? All right, maybe something happened. Okay, there. Yune, do you want to ask something? You're recognized.
Later. Wait.
Oh, okay, it's okay. Sorry, because you were raising your hand earlier. Let's now go to the question of Manny in the chat box. In your experience, what has encouraged ordinary people from participating in your citizen science initiatives, and what has discouraged them from being involved? And in the course of your work, so this is a slightly different one, did professional scientists play any role in helping you develop your research framework, in defining what methods to use in interpreting the data collected? So in summary, what, in your experience, what encourages and discourages people to participate, and then how do you work with professional scientists? Who wants to take a first crack at that? Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
So we've done a bit of work on understanding motivations of citizen science participants, and it's something that is still not that well understood. I think particularly understanding how motivations differ in different contexts. So we have quite a good understanding of why people might be motivated, for example, to participate in environmental monitoring programs in the UK, where it's very much more seen as a hobby. So like going out and counting birds or counting butterflies, it's something that people are interested in doing. They want to help protect wildlife. They want to feel like they're doing something worthwhile and something valuable. And I think we don't have much research on this, but I would say evidence suggests that those motivations might differ in different contexts. So, for example, when you're working with people who are poor, they might want to do something, be motivated much more to do something that directly affects their lives and their livelihoods. So I think we need to do more research to understand what those motivations are, because that really has a big impact on recruiting people into projects. And also we need, understanding of how to retain people within projects as well. And something that's come out of the research on that is really giving people a lot of feedback on what the data that they are collecting has been used for, and demonstrating to people the value. I mean, I guess this feeds into the point that was being made in the last question, that when people can see that the data that they're collecting is having an impact on policy or on local action or on improving scientific understanding of a problem, then they're motivated to continue participating. And there are a whole other range of factors that will be important as well. And a lot of those are kind of organizational, in terms of, people are motivated to participate in a well-run project, and a project that they feel is organized well. So there are kind of some hints out there in the literature, but I think it's an area that needs more research, in particular barriers to participation, and why particular groups of people are excluded from participating as well. But it's something that's really important to understand in terms of recruiting and retaining people in projects, which is obviously crucial if a project is to succeed.
Right, thank you for that, Rachel. Penchom, do you want to say something to add? Perhaps also you answered a similar question from Nina earlier. Would you want to emphasize that too?
Yeah. Just one or two points more to add that in our development of the research framework in the citizen science, the professional scientists play important role in helping us to, for example, to to develop or to formulate the protocols and helping us to discuss and analyzing the results. On this part, it is very important to justify and to build up the momentum of our work before we distribute to general public and media. And part of the citizen science, which is also say important, is to launch campaign. Campaign in here mean we have to connect with the general public and the media people. And this movement is very, will help us to move forward in the policy advocacy level. Some have a very good impact to make some changes at the community level. But as I said earlier, that in some cases it's also difficult to move forward with the policy improvement here. However, the involvement of every stakeholder from the community, civil society, media, and professional scientists are very important part to work in collaboration. Yeah.
Thank you. So data, involvement of professional scientists, media, persistent action.
Yeah.
Some of the things highlighted also in Pencham's presentation. Thank you. Krishna, would you want to add anything to that before we go to, unfortunately, perhaps our last question? After Krishna, would you want to say something?
Yeah, maybe I could add something. When we're working with our campaign, we know that we're working closely with the healthcare facilities worker, and unfortunately they not really aware about the harm of mercury, and they're working closely with mercury every day. And then we try to raise awareness of their awareness, so they could, and unfortunately we could encourage them to working together with us to do the monitoring, and then we discuss the result as well with them. And about and also we also discuss our measurement results, and we did the analysis. We discussed with the real scientists, and we discussed as well to develop the guidance for like how to handle the mercury spill, and also how to phase out the mercury containing medical devices. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishna. For our last question, sorry, we want to keep to the 2-hour time so that we could all also rest. Another question, no, from the chat box. From the presentations that we just heard, citizen science initiatives are already generating useful data for measuring progress in achieving some of the SDGs. From your understanding, how much of the data citizen science efforts are so far being utilized as input in SDG reporting, and what should be done locally and internationally to mainstream citizen science data into the SDG reporting mechanisms? Thank you. I would suppose that's for Rachel, no? Rachel?
So I think I'm right in saying that as yet, there's no data that's formally being used from citizen science within SDG monitoring. Perhaps some bird data is used in some of the biodiversity monitoring, and marine litter is another area where there's been some progress made in using that data within the formal monitoring system. There was a really interesting conference held in October in Berlin on citizen science and the SDGs. And a big theme that came out of that was trying to get citizen science projects and citizen science practitioners to kind of come together and kind of create a single voice, as it were, to advocate for the use of citizen science within the SDGs, so that the powers that be at the UN, you know, the national statistics offices and the custodian agencies aren't having to talk to individual projects, but have kind of a single point of contact. And you know, there was an emphasis on the importance of citizen science associations in bringing together projects and practitioners to advocate for the use of citizen science. And you know, in Europe, we've got a well-established European Citizen Science Association, and I know in Asia there's the fairly newly established Citizen Science Asia Association. I don't know if there's a representative of that association here today, but it's those kind of organisations, I think, that will play a really critical role in moving things forward. And then there's the newly formed Citizen Science Global Partnership as well, which will kind of sit above these regional citizen science associations, and again they'll have a really important role to play. So I think it's about kind of joining up and together advocating and having a stronger voice together, and hopefully that will be a route to progress for that.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, thanks. Okay, I think that's all we have time for question and answer for today. What's nice, dear friends, is that we have 3 more days, because in fact, as Eileen mentioned earlier, days 3 and 4 are precisely the days where we could also brainstorm more together about the challenges and possible solutions to this issues we've started to work on in terms of how to engender more participation from communities, especially from marginalized communities, how else we could collaborate more with one another, how else the data we generate through this citizen science could have more impact, no, to policy and even to community health. So this is definitely not the end, because we will be discussing these themes, these issues, still in the next 3 sessions. So thank you very much for all the participants who engaged with your questions, and thank you for the additional information the speakers provided. Definitely a lot of insights that we bring for the remainder of the month. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now I will turn you over to Eileen for the wrap up.
Thank you, Leah. We surely had a rich discussions for the day 1 of our virtual conference series. We now have a common understanding of the definition of citizen science and how people can use it within the context of the SDGs. We have showcased citizen science initiatives that address pollution in industrial hotspots, hospitals, and public playgrounds in Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And we learn how locally relevant citizen science initiatives led by public interest groups affected communities and sectors drew public awareness, and for some cases, even resulted in wide-ranging policy outcomes. Our sincere thanks to our presenters, to our translators, to all you participants for your active engagement. Thank you also to the organizing team behind this conference. Next week will also be a very informative and inspiring as we focus on citizen science and gender. So don't forget to join us next week. Save the date, November 11, for the 2nd day of our regional conference. Meanwhile, do take care, everyone. Keep safe and strong. Goodbye. Thank you.